Are you ready for the semifinals? Because I am. We're about to get underway. 20 seconds out. MarineLorD versus 3DB. And we guessed right. It's going to be the Mongol versus Mongol opening on Lipany. Seems to be the favorable opening, especially with that map choice. And I'm excited to see how it's going to play. Is it just going to be the stomp of the king? Or is the Prodigy going to come through? Because there's no denying that a lot more games have been played right now by MarineLorD on this game, right? On Age of Empires 4. He's doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up, possibly. We don't know how many Smurfs he's got. It's at least 3, right? Compared to 3DB, there's been hard grinding on one account. The data is more easily accessible. And I feel like he's been taking it kind of one at a time, trying to smash through. And Mongols are something we haven't been seeing as much out of him in his pub games. But he proved early today just how dominant he can be when he dispatched for the win cheese 2-0 like it was nothing. Opening wise. By the way, you like the new UI? I added a few elements. We'll keep pimping that out as time goes on and have a little bit of spare time. But that will do for now. Uvu placement, going to be important here. And, oh my god, 3DB got scammed. 3DB's been scammed. This generation. What? Oh, wait, no, I'm wrong. Gotcha, see. Baited. I couldn't see it under the TC. Yeah, okay, so he's not scammed. I thought he had... If he'd only had this stone outcropping, I would have had a heart attack for him. But it looks like he's safe. This is a really tight formation, actually. Not risky at all. It's very worrying when you look at some of these generations and your options are far out in Danger Town. I will say that his close by gold vein is more aggressively placed. He could fall back to this very hidden one behind him that he doesn't even know about right now. But most likely, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he's playing towards this one. And that's risky. If you look at MarineLorD by comparison, his gold vein is far back behind him. And while this leaves you susceptible to flank attacks, especially when you continue to branch out, the fact that you have to keep in mind is breaching and reaching is much easier than for MarineLorD because the gold line is going to be ahead of 3DB's primary base. And why that matters so much is step readout, right? Mongols play incredibly heavily into that gold line as soon as they crack Castle Age. Usually at least bare minimum 12 villages working it, which is a huge chunk of their effective economy. And then from that detail, the ripple-on effect that we have to talk about with Mongols is because you're stripping down that gold so quickly, you've got so many people working on it, it's going to drain up quicker. So then you have to think, like, where's the risk? Where are you moving? Well, you're moving very far out from your base, right, if you go for this one, unless he identifies and drags to the back one. Meanwhile, for MarineLorD, it's actually much closer, so if he has a level protection over this first one, he'll protect the secondary. And then even has this retracted gold vein that is very far back and unlikely to be scouted or even sniped. And opening 3DB and MarineLorD. This is the other thing I was excited about for this matchup, by the way. Both of these players like to go for the scout. They heavily prioritize the vision game, and you can see how much quicker they are actually revealing the entire map compared to different players. There's also the passover factor, right? So depending on how badly you're drained for sheep at the point, the whole concept is that you drag the Khan towards the scout's location, the scout gets the passover of sheep, and then he runs back to base while you keep the Khan up. The importance of this, by the way, isn't just scouting constantly. It's the fact that you are able to also go in and somewhat harass your opponent's economy courtesy of the Khan. By the way, that economy is going to be exposed for 3DB. So I hope for his sake, not after too long, he does get an outpost down around this area. The cool kind of daisy chaining effect is it's a forward outpost still. So it's a good frontline starter, and it could set you up for that daisy chain network of outposts we've been seeing out of high-level Mongol players. It's so effective due to the Yam movement speed buff that you unlock in the Castle Age. And split right now is fairly even. A lot more people on food at the moment for 3DB. It is going to be a stable drop. So Pro Scouts is the intent at MarineLorD. How will 3DB respond, though? He could go for a Rax and look to get aggressive early on, but I don't think that's the case. If you were intending with that opening, you would have already dropped a Rax. So likely he's going to similarly play into the stables. And yeah, here's the frustration I was talking about. You're really far out. You could get poked and prodded. You need to protect. But there we go. Covers the Deer Stone going down. Doesn't even bother to drop the stable yet, right? He has the required quantity to go for it. But he's actually forgoing it so far. There's no way he ignores Pro Scouts, right? I would be shocked if he done so. Like I said, I think the typical openings in a Mongol on Mongol, you're either going for Racks into Spears, or you're going for stable into Scouts. Occasionally, you can go into archery range, and that's what it's looking like 3DB's doing. The archers themselves could end up being counted out by horsemen, though. Keep that in mind, especially if MarineLorD gets enough together to get his hands on Pro Scouts. He'll be able to sustain the output of horsemen indefinitely, courtesy of not only the Uvu, kind of subtracting away from his takeout right by allowing him to pay with stone instead, but also because of that superior gathering rate out of deer. Can't just keep him busy. Gets eyeballs on the base. And this should kind of tip him off. So FreeDB, because he has nothing here but a pasture, MarineLorD should be suspecting the archers are coming. Meanwhile, just a little bit of pressure behind on the other side. But in the meantime, the scouts will come out. Tech up is almost complete. He's prepped, rubbing his hands together, ready for the pro scouts. Almost has the required quantity to get it as well. And also, the other thing to keep in mind is that MarineLorD doesn't necessarily feel behind because his opponent went for a pasture. Because he went for a pasture, that's 150 wood early. That's a military building. So you aren't worried about pressure. Even if he goes to an archery range, he might be behind on the economy side. And it actually enables you further to go into the pro scouts, ensuring that you're more likely to get the value and your opponent is unlikely to counter you out. And FreeDB is going to lose this scout. Yeah, there's no way you get out. That's a bit of a whoopsie. Not as important for him because he's not gathering. I say that. It's going to be important from a, like, I can't replace it aspect. And he is going back for the stable now. Keep in mind he's behind his opponent, though. This is a slow build-up. Your opponent already has his in place and has been building scouts. And also, now with the tech up complete, he's almost ready to get the pro scouts, and you're nowhere near. Look at the gold take. He's got nobody working the gold line because the scouts shoot up, right? So he dragged everything back. He didn't want to risk losing the Gur and giving 50 food and gold over to his opponent. Oof. Meanwhile, frustration as the villager... this is going to be tight. Yeah, I think this villager's dead. Scout should club once, and then you just chase in. Finished. Mwah. Kiss of death for him. So MarineLorD, he did take some damage himself. You can actually see the count is now even. So unless he slowed down for a third scout out of his TC, there was some sort of suboptimal play out of MarineLorD, which is not something we say often. But now, with this amount of scouts, right, he's halfway through on the pro scouts. Meanwhile, on the other side, FreeDB, I don't think he's going for it. There's no way he goes for pro scouts here, right? No. He could get the gold, but he has to understand that this delay, the fact he had to drag back to the back line, he's behind. He's far too far behind to go for it. So I hope he doesn't. I think he'd be baiting himself if he did. You can already see, right, MarineLorD, he's got so many scouts out here, 9 scouts in total. He's going to take away one huge chunk of deer already. And this is, once again, something that the Mongols can do better than most civs. Like, well, almost all civs, right? China and Rus compete to a certain degree, but it's the cost-effectiveness nature of it, right? Because you have that Uvu slowly draining and giving you stone, it means instead of spending, 120 food per 2 scouts, you're spending 60 food and then 60 of a passive resource that comes back to you. And that's the amazing part. That's why players put down an Uvu straight away. It's 150 wood initially, but because it's a constant treacle, it very quickly pays for itself in the coming minutes and preps you for a very powerful timing immediately in the beginning of a feudal age and gives you that flexibility. First horseman out for FreeDB. Might try and raid the gold line, seeing that his opponent has a similar situation. The problem is with the outpost, it becomes difficult, right? And oh, he dodges him perfectly. Just on the edge, so he's going to force him off the line. And FreeDB, he's stood on the ground. He's holding ground, so he's not pushing out. Important that as well, because he might have got sniped otherwise. And there you go. So Horseman revealed. You don't care, though. MarineLorD, he already got what he came for. The booty is his. More Scout just drawing the Hardened Khan away, covering him because he wants that tech up. That's the juicy part, right? Your food gather rates allow for this quite effectively. Credit to FreeDB. Considering the difference in unit production, right? He put out 1 Horseman compared to all these Scouts, even with the cost somewhat negated by double producing with the Uvu. It does mean that FreeDB has the required quantity of food first. Question is on the gold front, right? Because the split, if you look at it right now, 19 people on the food. MarineLorD has matched up to the 19 now, but he already had more initially on the gold, and he had a better placement for it. He was never forced off his gold line, which means he's going to have the required resources to go for castle first. And there it is. Drops it straight away. And 11 villagers immediately onto it. So MarineLorD looking up to castle age, slightly ahead of FreeDB. FreeDB. Just about sustaining the required amount of pastures. I like to see this out of Mongol players. There's a lot more utilization now for your economy around the Uvu compared to before, where it was just military infrastructure. And FreeDB, it's a bit stunted. Yeah, so he built it over near the gold vein because it's so far away. It's the efficient play in this situation, but it means he's going to be late, right? His opponent put 10 people on this, and he started building it sooner. And remember what we talked about. It's the cruel effect, right? If you get into a stage where we're talking about second gold vein, MarineLorD is much more comfortable in this game because it's less distance to move over, whereas when you're talking about 3DB, it's a long slog to get to the next gold line initially, yes, and then also the location is further out from safety near your base. One of them, in fact, is in front of your base. There we go. Instantly in the secondary stable. Blacksmith has already been dropped as well. Probably concerned about a melee-on-melee engagement considering his opponent went into the stables. So just prepping for that as he readies up the Lancers. And it's going to be double production rate, remember. He saved up a lot of stone here. In fact, after all that, they're similar on the stone counts because the way 3DB kind of played the opening and the way he invested, right? So it's not like he's going to be able to double unit production further along than MarineLorD is. They're going to be even in that regard. Right now, 3DB, not with the required amount of gold to actually do anything about this. He shifts so many people across here. And this is where MarineLorD could find value. Because this step readout is so far out, if he raids in with a few Lancers, you will destroy 3DB's economy. And yeah, you have an outpost, but you have surplus workers here. Luckily for the moment, it's scouts, but this is a prelude to what's coming, right? This is a preview of the future. And the future will look bleak for 3DB. There you go, scouts in the meantime. He's even brought the ones that already have corpses. Not the most efficient of players coming out of MarineLorD, but he is busy at the moment. He's moving around his Khan. He's moving around Lancers. He's prepping for a raid. And where's the answer? Lancers now coming out for 3DB. But if you just prioritize the villages, even if you lose your Lancers here as MarineLorD, this is worthwhile for him. There you go, Lancers just moving out. Remember, when you get in charge range, zoom. Especially with the Yam speed. But he's engaging, he's outnumbered, so he's going to lose these Lancers. This is ineffective. He's going after the Khan. This is not the right play. 3DB baits himself in. He must have been looking elsewhere. There's no way you stay on top of the Khan there. But he didn't have a choice, right? He couldn't run away either due to the maneuver arrows. And now that maneuver arrow can get you through if you want. And there it is. Pops it, backs away the Khan so he isn't tanking the tower. And then straight across onto the Villi line. And even if you get through the Lancers, value is going to be found. They'll trade out once again effectively here. So far, you've sniped a scout, you've lost 2 Lancers, and you're even Stevens in terms of health on remaining Lancers. But he did at least keep the Villies up. But 1 was sniped down, so you can see the number starting to increase. Now a 4 gap between them and MarineLorD being up over 3DB. And this is the advantage of MarineLorD. MarineLorD plays these mirror matchups incredibly well. You can argue about him being caught out and off guard when his opponent does, you know, like Delhi versus X or does China versus France. But when you give him the mirror respect, well, he doesn't show that respect back. I guess you could say he does in a way. He shows you the grace of defeating you in style. And that's what's starting to happen here. The numbers aren't adding up right now for 3DB. He's trying to fix it right now with double stable. But look at the UV drain already, right? He's not going to be able to afford this long term. Charge in. And this time, he's here for the villagers. Khan being chased in the meantime. Might get sniped out, in fact. You need to be a little bit careful here. So he's going to try and back away. Snipes out a few more villagers, though. So 35 now compared to the 42. And in his retreat, there is a maneuver arrow available to 3DB. It's just not very effective when Lancers are running away from you like this. And that's why he hasn't used it. The Yam speed for the movement will make the difference in the meantime. But look at the new raids, right? Sneaks past, grabs even more carcasses, retreats back to base. And you have to be getting a little bit concerned here. The pasture scaling's been good, but you're running out of space around the UV at this rate, right? And you kind of need it for the additional military units at this stage, the other issue. Notice that 3DB still has surplus, but he's not using it on the Lancers. I think this is possibly not intended. I think it's because he's selecting both of these, and only one of them, of course, can use UV right now. The other one's out of range. And that's why he's only single producing, when he could be doubling up on one of these stables. And now, doubling up the stable count. MarineLorD up to 4 here. Military count. MarineLorD is doubling him up. Remember, some of that is scouts, but a lot of this is now Lancers. And you just see how they outnumber on all fronts. Right now, MarineLorD, he just doesn't care, right? He's going to skirt certain areas. He's going to push you in. You don't actually have the required number of troops to respond on all fronts to this. It's just ping after ping after ping as alerts go off and you run back and forth across your base while the Benny Hills theme tune sets in. And another Lancer lost. This is not going well. He's also weaker, right? Look at it. 36, 4-4 compared to now 5-5, 37. So all upgrades achieved from MarineLorD. FreeDB, he doesn't have a blacksmith, right? He still can't do this. So even if he had equal numbers, it wouldn't end well for him. And this is not going to end well at all. FreeDB under pressure. MarineLorD engaging. Scouts wasting a little bit of time here for the Lancers. And FreeDB, only 3 Lancers left on the home field against 8. This is not a good situation to be in. He'll dive deeper. Almost snipes out the calm, but now he can return with the step readout line if he wants to. He can even raise this outpost to the ground. And with his calm back, MarineLorD will have superior movement and numbers in the next fight. Splits up. Uses the scout straight away on top of the outpost, and he'll raise it to the ground. And FreeDB, at that state in the game, unless you snipe out a few Lancers here, I'm not sure where your recovery point is. Charging again. Heavy injuries onto several of these Lancers, but if they get the initial charge, they find their value. And now the replenishment. And when you see this as FreeDB, what do? You're being doubled up and then beyond now. 7 to the 15. And just being outproduced. There we go. That's what we're talking about. The step readout drains through 1. Meanwhile, at the same time, FreeDB only halfway through this. That's the comparative. The harassment onto the eco line. The further out reach. It takes him so long to collect the gold needed to sustain a Lancer army that can match MarineLorD. And with more villagers coming over here, you can see the desperation. MarineLorD, he strikes. He understands. He's this desperate. He's running out of resources this quick. And if you strike like this, it might be good enough. FreeDB, down to 28. It's close to a double up. And I don't know how you recover at this rate. Like I said, there's these heavy injuries, but the micro is not on point from FreeDB. He's the one getting cycle charged at the moment. And even with the Yam movement speed, look at it. He turns around and loses 2 more. And you might just get dove in the base. You are being dove. And there's not enough room here for everyone. Some of the villagers too late to garrison in. They're going to be left outside while the monsters prowl around. And this is a disaster. This is a full halt on his economy. Nothing gathering other than these 3 workers right now. This wood line has been somewhat ignored, but they're going to return for the step readout, because if you burn this to the ground, you completely invalidate everything FreeDB has tried to do. And that's why he calls it. He knows the game was over. So well played out, MarineLorD. Once again, proving the power of pro scouts and why it's important to play into it. And the fact that he forced FreeDB to go back for the stables afterwards is where this starts to fall apart for me. FreeDB, opening-wise, it has to be stables into pro scouts, or you're looking at spears/archers for early harassment. Well, because your opponent goes for the scout spam, you know archers aren't on the table for you, right? So you have to be looking at racks before that. But the problem with the racks play is that it only really works out if you do it immediately. You need to get the quantity out straight away to overwhelm your opponent. Failing to do so, failing to actually apply the pressure, and also, in fairness, being cursed somewhat by the map generation gods, we see a loss for FreeDB, but this is only game 1, and I don't think it's going to be that easy in game 2. I suspect that FreeDB is capable of a comeback. I think he just needs to shake this one off, except that Mongols, that's MarineLorD's, bread and butter. He's incredibly effective at it. He's proven that although he doesn't grind it that often right now in the pub setting, he knows it inside out. He's got his openings just down to a T. So I think going on the next game, I expect FreeDB lean into something like China. China is very powerful for him. I will say that recently when they've been matching up in pub settings, with China on China matchups, MarineLorD has come out ahead. But FreeDB has that experimentation layer, and it is one of his strengths. And I think when you're up against the wall like this, when you're pressured, with your back against the abyss, threatened to be being thrown in here, you need to go to something comfortable, right? That can give you an edge. And I think that's either Delhi or China. But either way, we're going to find out in just a few minutes. So stay tuned, folks. And then we will return for game number 2 between MarineLorD and FreeDB. But folks, FreeDB back against the wall has to be a step ahead of MarineLorD in this one. I think the Chinese player that takes an early lead and starts to apply pressure, gets access to the Fire Lancers first, can actually have an edge. Although this map might be the twist of fate. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that is the case, right? When we talk about these open maps, things like Lipany come to mind, or you can also consider maps such as the Confluence map. I think those maps really favor the move quicker into Fire Lancers. But I think with this choke point could give you the edge that even if you aren't ahead in terms of dynastying up, you can still bounce back with a more bulky, heavy, but slow-moving army built up a Palace Guard. So it's going to be kind of cool to see if one of these players does go into the early Yuan Dynasty and then tries to rush forward with the Fire Lancers, or if he's just going to get a mirror matchup, right, of Nesta Bees and Palace Guard, which has become a very powerful point in the game for China. And remember that China, although we always talk about, woo, how amazing is it? We've got movement speed and we've got Fire Lancers. Fire Lancers are broken, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. The funny part about this is everyone's so focused on how powerful Fire Lancers are, they're kind of forgetting all the other elements of China that kind of can make them broken in the late game. So, for example, it's not just the easy way in which they scale to get to that late game. It's the fact that obviously you can get additional landmarks to get access to all these extra techs, these extra abilities, such as scanning for the villages. Also makes you harder to landmark victory. And then when we talk about late game techs, we're talking about things around like the gunpowder factors, such as the fact that the Chinese have a unique tech that allows them to get 20% additional range on all gunpowder troops. That means hand cannoneers, Nester Bees, and bombards all get additional range, right? So expect both of these players, if this drags out, to play heavily into Nester Bees and bombards, and it's going to turn into a slog back and forth behind keeps. Opening-wise, I think they are more or less identical with the wood. Okay, one more on wood for MarineLorD compared to 3DB. That's the difference maker. Wait. Is he a whole... Yeah, wow. So MarineLorD usually goes for the second scout, but in this game has opted to forsake it. And I understand why. I think on passage, this is the better choice, right? On the pass, the mountain pass, it's quite easy to get away with one scout because there's a limited amount you need to cover and identify, right? You're going to be able to quickly move out and wall off this area. And the fact you now have an additional villager could enable you to do exactly that if you choose. That's kind of a cool idea. I think it's interesting to think about that from a map perspective. So a perfect example of this is on Mongolian Heights. I think it is never acceptable to not have 2 scouts at the beginning, just because of how many sheep are near the center and how quickly you can gather them compared to just 1 scout on your opponent's side, right? It's a huge 1-up. And if your opponent is doing it, you're at least evening him up. But on a map like Mountain Pass, the additional value needed really isn't there. You can just move off, wall this off eventually. In the meantime, sneak your scout into their side of the map, so you'll be able to sneak in and have a look at what they're up to from time to time. And 1 Imperial official so far. Expect this to be the same case for 2 or 3 more minutes at least. You already see a move onto the gold vein at MarineLorD. Interesting choice. We've seen a lot of Chinese players not even engage with gold mining at all. All right? It's almost like they're this uppity society. No one needs to go down into the coal mines or the gold mines. All right? We live above ground. You enjoy your life. China is amazing. Oh, by the way, we're going to tax you half your earnings. Wait, what? And that's usually what they do, as you can see with the Imperial Official, right? So it already has a required amount. MarineLorD ready to drop one down. And look at that. The walling's actually going to come out of 3DB first. He moves out before his opponent, despite being at a villager deficit. And now, Imperial Academy. MarineLorD, I love this read on the situation. He doesn't need to rush a Barbican in the sun. He doesn't feel like 3DB is going to aggress onto him. And he'll get confirmation as soon as he discovers this walling going on. And yeah, I love 3DB just letting the scouts back in. He's like, come on, hurry up. The zombies are coming. Got to close the gate. And meanwhile, MarineLorD likely to just keep in here. And look, 3DB, because he done the palisade, he's going to do the exact same thing. Of course, the person who gets the advantage here is the person who, 1, built their scouts, and 2, didn't go and build a wall. Reason being is this villager, every second he's over here, he's not working, right? And you're already at a scout deficit. Oh, sorry, not scout, village deficit, sorry. Because you went for that second scout. There we go. Take up first for MarineLorD. You'll instantly get value out of this as well, right? The difference between going for this and Barbican the Sun first is Imperial Academy instantly becomes valuable because it's generating more tax, right? Every second actually does matter. Meanwhile, Barbican the Sun, you only really rush towards it if you're super paranoid your opponent is going to aggress into your base with like a ram rush. Otherwise, just, I don't know, buy a little bit of time. Don't rush. Don't waste valuable opportunities to gather more resources in the early game. And Scout somehow getting the better of 3DB by a mile here. Good lord. So he's keeping the Scout Vision busy. It means that 3DB isn't checking on what MarineLorD is doing. And it means MarineLorD is going to be able to get this stable out without his opponent realizing. Meanwhile, 3DB, he only put 1 person on this, right? Because he doesn't want to pull away from the lines. And because China builds faster. But this means he's vastly delayed compared to his opponent. And if we look across, we can already see the intent out of MarineLorD. He's building into professional scouts again. And I feel like they should just rename this tournament. This isn't the Winter Series hosted by EGC. This is hunting season hosted by EGC, right? It's all it's about. It's all that any player seems to care about right now, at least if they want to win, is pro scouts. Now moving out, gathering up, already up to 4 of these scouts. Meanwhile, no response similar out of 3DB. So they're already pivoting and going in different directions, right? 3DB isn't bothering to go for a stable. And he has plenty of surplus wood to do so if need be. which makes me question what the play is. It looks like he's going he's going TC boom. Here we go. Look at the stone gathering. And this is interesting because this was one of the things that we've talked about. I think the one other viable way of approaching Age of Empires economy right now, you either engage with Pro Scouts, which obviously isn't feasible for every Civ. So the backup option that at least makes it still possible to play the game is exactly this. Instead of engaging with Pro Scouts, you go straight into a secondary TC, scaling past your opponent in terms of quantity of units, so that instead of worrying about the fact that his village account is quality heavy due to the fact that you gather from deer quicker, you have a vaster quantity able to gather more regularly across, you know, farms, berries, whatever it may be. Really cool opening. Really tight formation, though. I don't think you needed to be this tight with the TC. Just playing an incredibly stacked economy. I'm just not sure. I'm not entirely sure why in this situation. But now that he's done that, you can see he immediately drags everyone across the gold, and he's going to look to go for a quick tech boom into Castle Age. And he needs to make sure he keeps up the food production and always supervises. Reason being is now that you have 2 TCs, that's double the cost every minute for village account, right? Meanwhile, over at MarineLorD's base, MarineLorD, no intent to gather stone at all. This is a peculiar choice. I think you almost always, as China, can justify a second TC, right? The only time you don't is when you're under pressure, under siege. But MarineLorD, so far, looking like he's forsaken it. He's going straight for a Castle Age rush. So his intent is to try and close out this game before it becomes like a mass eco-booming situation. And keep in mind, he's had that scout prowling around somewhat, right? So I think he did get eyeballs on at one stage before losing him. There he is. Oh, no, he's not lost. He's still alive. 27 health. Always getting away. And then walls in his opponent instead. And look what he forces out of 3DB. So Barbican the Sun's going to be built here. This is a good investment for 3DB, remember. From MarineLorD's perspective, he might feel like he's forcing a mistake out of his opponent, but we know that he has a second TC back in base. So Song Dynasty has increased value to him, and also MarineLorD should become aware of this soon, courtesy of the scout sitting all the way over here. And still no similar move. So no move to put the Barbican down, and it would be more costly for MarineLorD if he moved out to do that now, because remember, his opponent was already going to beat him to build up the Barbican, and also on top of that, more important detail is he doesn't have a second TC. And yeah, MarineLorD. I think this is just genuinely a straight Castle Age rush. He doesn't care about the dynasties. Hey man, we keep saying Vision wins games. That's why he wants that Tang Dynasty, right? Maybe. Does mean he's on the clock though. 3DB is going to outscale him. You can already see a 4-point lead in terms of village account for 3DB, and that is going to escalate quickly now with Song Dynasty being reached. So much tax, good God. So MarineLorD can actually sustain 1 or 2 heavy pushes in with Palace Guard and siege weapons, but as we said, he has to be quick with this. And this might end up being Treb gameplay, right? You're not going to build Nester Bees or Springles against Barbican the Sun. And it does feel annoying to have to go into a Treb, but you need to siege through this Barbican the Sun first. That's what makes 3DB's play so good, is he's put this in a way that he's saying to his opponent, you know that I've gone for Song Dynasty, right? So MarineLorD, he has 2 responses. Either MarineLorD himself has gone for Song Dynasty and multi-TC and doesn't care and will just sit there, or now he has to push past a heavily defended area via the Barbican Sun to reach 3DB's base. And 3DB will also have an early warning of that attempt due to not only the pass save walls, but the Barbican Sun itself. And that's what I love about this opening. And I talked about this before, right? If you ever go Imperial Age first and you plan to go back for the Barbican Sun, use it in an aggressive fashion. Take control of a big chunk of the map somewhere critical. And what better place to do it on Mountain Pass than here? Castle Age timings. 3DB is going to beat him to the punchline after all of that. Needs to start getting the military infrastructure down. You can see that MarineLorD is already prepped at 3 racks at the ready. So he wants to spam mass Palace Guard as soon as possible. 3DB still has the scalability, but now into the double racks. And remember, because you have the hold here, because you have the defense in place, 3DB can just go for Nester Bees. Nester Bees and Spirals counts out everything, right? Meanwhile, MarineLorD, he's going to have to go for Rams or Trebs, and it's going to be Rams. Decides that the 300 wood is a better cost than, obviously, the 500 wood, 250 gold. You don't say, Sherlock. But guys, the clock tower gives 50% more health to a trebuchet, so it's less likely to die. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure if someone mass builds trebuchets in the early game, they're very likely to die of boredom. So pass on that one, thanks. So Pascal's starting to come out. Springle's being built as well. Understands that his opponent's likely to build in the nest of bees, having the defensive high ground. And so far, 3DB not building into those bees at all. Despite it being in the name, it's not appearing in the game. Instead, he's covering himself, because that's the advantage that MarineLorD has, right? That's why he's playing for this high-tempo timing. Because he went to Pro Scouts and he knew that his opponent didn't, it means that he's got more surplus food at the moment to push out the initial army. Meanwhile, 3DB should be weak at this stage in the game because he just shoot his hand, right? He castle-aged up, and he can't have much food left in his base, as we can clearly see as 3DB begins to transition into the farmlands. Back round moving in. Forward racks being dropped by 3DB. Palace Guard coming out in the meantime. MarineLorD needing to be careful. Remember, Barbican Sun can easily just target out your squishy units. And this delay has bought vital time for 3DB. You can see he's actually getting onto another racks on the forward line. Also moving onto the deer now. So that limitation we talked about is no longer there. 3DB is going to scale fine. He's going to be able to catch up to MarineLorD in time. And that gets scary. Moving in. Everyone piles on top of this. Needs to stay close to be able to protect the battering ram. And remember, he went Springles. 3DB did not. But he is going in mass Palace Guard right now. And you can see the push forward. All the villagers moving across. Understands how important it is to keep the quantity of food coming in up and at a high. Barbican Sun. Half fried. Eventually soon to be set on fire. I don't know how you do that to the sun, but it's what's going to happen here. Springle's getting a little bit too close to the sun. Might get burned. And the Palace Guard numbers, they're not there for MarineLorD. Look at it, 13 for 3DB. He outnumbers him. MarineLorD needs to retreat the nest of bees. It's too late, though. He's exposed. The Palace Guard, remember, they move 1.38 per second. They are too fast to outrun. And this nest of bees is done. Burnt to his cinders. Repairs are going to be too late. He gets one or two of the Springles away, but that's going to be it. Has to retreat the Palace Guard out. He did set fire to the Barbican of the Sun, but remember, there are villagers nearby. They can repair this in time. It's just a question of whether they can actually get there before the battering ram finishes off. And weirdly, these... No, MarineLorD, what? He actually had that. If he rammed it one more time, he had it, but now it can be repaired. We'll just have to see if 3DB's quick with this. 3DB is too busy raiding at this stage. Look how exposed you are. This is the power of Palace Guard. You don't have to engage your opponent. It's 1.38 movement speed, baby. Just run past them. And yeah, he might match that speed, but you know what doesn't move that fast? Villagers. 1.12 tiles per second. Easy to chase down. And MarineLorD, look at the difference. 43 to the 69 count on the pop count for villagers. MarineLorD once again into the breach with a battering ram. And look, the Barbican of Sun, the clutch repair. This is what I was talking about. If he just rammed it one more time, literally one more time, it's gone. But now, that hesitation, that mistake to draw back the ram that was already going to be in trouble anyway, means that the defense is going to be standing and repaired. And the reason this is a big deal is it means you have to once again get through it. And that's vital time being wasted while 3DB continues to scale behind it. Here we go. Back in again. Problem is, 3 workers should repair quick enough on this, but he decides to bail on it for the moment. Stealth Forest hiding the Palace Guard. The Palace Guard that do outnumber MarineLorD. And MarineLorD did not replace his nest of bees, remember. So holding the choke point for the moment, but the chase through. Only the Springles. They might not be as strong or as valuable to kill as they once were. Arguably, in some ways, they're more. They cost 50 gold on Wimble than they used to, but they do half the damage they once did. And the chase down continues. Barbican Sun is going to be fried. But the count is just there for 3DB. You can see it in the main fight as well. 13 Palace Guard versus the 20 plus of 3DB. And now the nest of bees. He's ignoring it. Big deal. Splash damage out is decent. And now MarineLorD, if he holds it here, he'll have the edge. But he's being pushed back straight towards the location of the nest of bees. The nest of bees spreading its fire across the splinter groups that it can. Being repaired. The cluster repairs are good. And it is preventing, but MarineLorD has to keep this up on the micro, and it's not good enough. He loses it again. And he's going to lose the Springald on the side at this rate. Maybe he keeps that up, but the more important detail is losing the nest of bees. A Hence B is not going to be good for you here. And MarineLorD shuffling down to just 7. He calls the GG. We're getting a game 3, ladies and gentlemen. 3DB, we said this was his special civ. We said he could bounce back, and he does exactly that. Fantastic opening, utilizing the economy to the fullest, and the location of the Barbican of the Sun, ensuring that MarineLorD cannot get through. MarineLord's mistake looking back at this, not frying the Barbican of the Sun earlier. If he did, there's an opportunity to get in. But the way he trickles in, the way he gets sniped out on the siege weapons regularly, and I think an overinvestment into the Springles especially, cost him here. If he had a bigger bulk of troops, right, if he had 5, 6, maybe 7 more of his Palace Guard, as well as having an additional nest of bees there, which you can afford when you consider the cost of all those Springles. Those Springles together, he spent over 1,000 wood and gold on to get them all together, right? But he was so paranoid playing blind that his opponent was going to have Springles of his own that he had to prep for that. Because if anything goes wrong, if you get sniped out by Springles your opponent has on those battering rams, it delays your timing by at least a minute. And you already know your opponent has gone into a Song Dynasty. You already anticipate he's booming. But what you're not ready for is the quadruple, 5, 6, how many ever it need be, barracks drop coming out of 3DB that he's able to sustain because his economy has vastly outscaled your own. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you get your way to a BO3 game 3 between 3DB and MarineLorD. And we'll be ready for that in just a few minutes, so stay tuned. Okay, so just for recap, for anyone who's not sure what the scores were, it's now 1-1 after we just had Mirror Mongols followed up by Mirror China. Game 1, Mongols went the way of MarineLorD. Game 2, drawn back by 3DB to keep this one mucho grande spicy. And game number 3 has added all kinds of spice to the mix. 5 spice, paprika, chili powder, everything in the bomb pot, and somehow it's going to taste phenomenal. Because not only is Game 3, the deciding one here in the semifinals between 3DB and MarineLorD, going to take place on Boulder Bay, but it's going to be HRE versus England. That's right, you heard me correctly. You would not have expected this. We thought France maybe. We thought maybe Delhi. Probably France. It's Boulder Bay. Both of them, almost like it was a gentleman's agreement, say, no. No French today, okay? Even the Frenchman is willing to give that over. He shifts over to Germany. 3DB becomes an Englishman, and we are underway in what is basically a BO1 barn burner here on Boulder Bay. And this one just caught me off guard. I didn't expect this choice from either of these players. HRE was possibly on the radar for me for 3DB. MarineLorD, I didn't expect it. 3DB, I never could have seen England coming in this situation. But we are in for one hell of a match either way. Now, keep in mind the potential power spikes for both sides. No one has that insta-va-va-voom. There's no French Hulks, which was what my big concern was. I didn't catch the ban at the beginning of the series. I'm starting to think it was probably France, considering we are on Boulder Bay. And I'm kind of glad that that ban occurred, right? It's kept it very interesting. I think if we just got another mirror matchup where it's just a Hulk spam and a dance on the lake, everyone's going to fall asleep halfway through. But this is going to be intriguing because while they both have access to galleys in the feudal age, the difference is how much easier it is for MarineLorD to boom up into Castle Age and potentially catch 3DB off guard. So the question is, on Boulder Bay, are we going to see Longbow Rush? Are we going to see Ram Rush? Are we going to see early pressure? Because you are playing up against the HRE. Now, one thing I would love to see coming out of 3DB in this early game is walling, just because of the locations of the relics. Relics are kind of favoring MarineLorD a little bit. He's got 2 on his side, right? And this one's a little bit further out in comparison. But you can easily hold the high ground in this situation. Keep in mind, with this generation, there is 1 relic on the island over here. So HRE, if they choose to go for an early transpo ship, that is an option. And it's something that usually doesn't get sniped out by opponents, especially if you're keeping the pressure on elsewhere of galleys. And looking to already ramp up the pressure, you see that MarineLorD beats his opponent to the punchline and already gets on the waterfront. And now, my real question is, like, do you play heavily into it, though, or do you try and race? I feel like if you're England in this situation, and you understand how thin the window is with which you can exploit water, potentially, well, not even exploit it, but even it up, I think you have to respect that HRE's economy will scale too quickly for you to galley pressure, and it just might be a better choice to go straight into Hulks. However, this is different. What? Is this a misclick out of 3DB? No, he's planning to drop a base next to his opponent. Look at this, the transport ship. Oh my god. We do not see this often enough, but we're about to. It could also be that he's moving across to the island. preemptively, right? One, he can set up a fishing network here, but two, it means he'll guard this area against a prelate being landed and snatching away the relic that you know is sitting over there. But no, that's not the case. Look what FreeDB's doing. He's going for the southwestern shore, right? He's going to try and sneak a base in here next to an HRE player that's not going to expect it, right? MarineLorD, in this early game, unlikely to build any military presence, might consider actually instead building a wall to block himself in and prevent his opponent from harassing. But if he doesn't scout this out, it's going to be a catastrophe. And where has he gone? He's coming around. And the timing on this is pure pain. MarineLorD, even with 2 scouts, the way this is opened up, it doesn't look good. Oh, 1 scout. Okay. That's right, yeah. Prelates, don't ask me why, folks. Prelates are considered combat units, despite the fact that all they do is buff people and heal them. So just 1 scout. And look at this. This is intent. FreeDB does this on purpose. He's dragging the scout's attention away. He doesn't want MarineLorD looking at the back of his base right now because he's sneaking the racks in right now. And this would be such a brutal way to end MarineLorD's tournament life if this plays out correctly. But he's got some time before it gets there. We've seen other players attempt this, right? And it has backfired quite often. The key here is you cannot at any second be spotted. Otherwise, you just don't have the infrastructure in place, and in the early game, you don't have the military production rate to fully utilize the base. But with it dropped, is it going to be... Yeah, it's the Vanguard man-at-arm spam. So, even if he doesn't push into the main base, what he can do here, as you see with the waypoint, is he can raise the dock, and there's nothing you can do to stop this. You're already underway with the tech up, and if he pushes out man-at-arms at a regular pace, he'll burn down the dock before you're able to defend on the water. And the cool concept behind this is it means that FreeDB, being on England, will even up the economical advantages that HRE would usually have over him due to the fact that he'll deny him on the waterfront. Okay, I'm sold. Let's see if it works, though. He holds back the Vanguard man-at-arms for the time being. Reason being, you don't want to give your opponent time to react. You know he's probably in the middle of a tech up right now. You're almost 5 minutes into the game. The problem is this. MarineLorD is dropping a second dock. And if you wait too long now, he'll get the initial military units out to defend himself. And with that additional trickle of military units, will repel your attempts on land here. And oh my god. Keep in mind he's saving so much, right? Usually your economy is capped early because of the use of wood onto longbow spam. But FreeDB isn't teching up at all. It's just going to be Vanguard man-at-arms. I have not seen this yet, but it could be so effective. And in they go. 10 damage per throw. MarineLorD, is he going to race to speed this up on the Arkan Chapel? Oh my god, that's small play. FreeDB done that on purpose. He's hitting into the villager to try and distract from what's happening on the waterfront. Because if he does, it buys him a little bit more time, and there's not more pressure to build up this Arkan Chapel quicker. The problem is this second dock, right? I don't even... Yeah, FreeDB doesn't know. He doesn't know that there's a secondary dock. And that's where this could backfire. And it's a problem if it does, right? 3 racks invested here. Your opponent techs up and he has a second dock. You could be in trouble right now. And I just don't think this is quick enough. Against other civs maybe, but against HRE, this is not looking good enough. Even brings the scout across. Hell, at this stage, bring the villager. It's not like your Villy is doing anything else, right? Where is his Villy, actually? Oh my god, he's missing. Someone put out some, I don't know, posters. Print out missing posters on cartons or something. It seems that he's missing his villager. He's not on the boat either. I'm very confused by this. But this player's backfired. It hasn't worked. So now the galleys. Look how quickly they shred through the Vanguard man-at-arms. Oh, and this is backfired. He has to run inland, but it might be too late for that as well. Your opponent is already building into an archery range. Although, why? He could get... Why? He could get man-at-arms. MarineLorD? Nani? He can't get crossbowman until Castle Age, right? So presumably it's because he thinks he's just going to tank until then. Which he, actually, in fairness, could do. It's only a few Vanguard man-at-arms. But this still feels wonky. On both sides. And there's the villager. FreeDB. Now trying to place the outpost. And the man-at-arms could threaten your opponent. Instead, look, sends them back on the front. 1 dock has already been raised. Meanwhile, sieging onto the economy. Because remember, FreeDB, he totally forsook going up into Tech 2, which means he cannot protect himself against a single measly galley. And that means he's going to run out of the food to push out surplus man-at-arms very quickly here. Oh my god, and he didn't get it down. The value is found. The archers pay off. And this is this is not meant to be the true value, by the way. It wasn't about sniping out this villager. It was actually about the fact that the archers, remember, they move at 1.25 tiles per second compared to the Vanguard man-at-arms at 1.12. The Vanguard man-at-arms only have 2 range resistance as well, so they'll get kited and killed over time. And this is problem. This is problem time right now. FreeDB, he's fully pressured to do something. He charges in, and this is not good. Remember, the man-at-arms, they are not effective at cleaving through the infantry or the villagers. 8 damage per swing is not good enough. And plenty of room for everyone to hide in the TC. And this is looking dire right now. MarineLorD, he's so comfortable. He's forced his opponent off the ocean. He's repelled the early pressure. The secondary dot completely trips him up, and FreeDB is a little bit lost right now. Gets the council hall down at least. I don't even know if you get a galley out before you lose the dock, though. And these man-at-arms are pathetic. Look how easily they die. You cough on them, they fall over. And this, I think we're seeing exactly why people don't do the Vanguard man-at-arms rush. In concept, cool. In execution, no. Just a hard no. Especially against HRE. You should have known he was going to boom up too quickly. Maybe against a slower starter, I could see possibly like Delhi or Abysses maybe getting caught off. Obviously, Delhi have the protection of the fishing boats early. Maybe France to a certain extent, but never against HRE. I think this was too easy to read out of MarineLorD, and he done so perfectly. Reacted perfectly. Now FreeDB kind of at a loss. Not only in this game, but in this series. Remember, they're 1-1 right now. This is the deciding game, and to throw such a curveball. We said FreeDB might do this. We said he's cocky. We said he's confident. We say he likes to play outside the box, and if you give him an advantage, he will push it. But what we also said is when he gets into these equal engagements, when he gets onto even footing with his opponent, he tends to fall behind, especially against superior players, people who have so much experience and have proven themselves to be king of kings, such as MarineLorD. No. Eco count. Look at the numbers. So much sacrifice by FreeDB, and for what? 12 eco units behind, courtesy of his fishing fleet being completely gone. Drained off the water and never getting back on. MarineLorD has found his value, and he doesn't even have to heavily invest into defending it, right? There's no way that your opponent is likely to get back on the water. And FreeDB, what is this? He's building more infrastructure. He thinks if he can get the archers down, he can counter this. Here's the problem, though. You've been spotted. The galley patrol and MarineLorD can chase this, but he misses the opportunity. He's not looking. And a bullet has been dodged on this day by FreeDB. The problem is that right now, MarineLorD doesn't care about this back base, right? He's going Regnitz Cathedral. It's almost complete, halfway already, and he's starting to build into troops to deal with you. And that's why he's running these villages over. He needs archery ranges. Longbows could deal with his archers in equal quantity. But you're not going to get that opportunity. And there you go. Here's how pitiful the man-at-arms look. They are in charge. He got in range by mistake, so they're 1.44. But as soon as he breaks out the Stealth Forest, you're just out. And there's no chase opportunity. Meanwhile, Scout will at least chase down the Prelate. A little bit of a mistake there. MarineLorD not guarding his lads, so might end up losing a Prelate to just slow but sure kills from the Scout. Regnitz Cathedral now complete. FreeDB a whole tech behind his opponent. Make no mistake, this is an I'm almost there as well, guys. He spent so much on this early aggression, and it has not paid dividends. And he probably has one good attempt at this left. Remember, the archery range down, MarineLorD can now start to push out crossbowmen. And then you lose all of your man-at-arms in the blink of an eye. There you go. Garrisons moves away. These are early man-at-arms now, right? So they're a decent amount more tanky, an extra bit of resistance, 20 more health, and decent amount more damage, but still pitiful. And he doesn't even bother crossbowmen. Look, he wants to run him through and get him off the island. Into the Knights. And FreeDB out of the base. This outpost network attempt. A good idea. The attack speed buff could be handy. Meanwhile, Walla on the side. Scout is going to be forced away, and that should keep him off now, courtesy of MarineLorD Scout. But man, unless you're going for Rams, I don't see the play. 3DB, has he got Blacksmith? No Blacksmith. This is looking doomed. I mean, it kind of felt doomed from the start, right? I'm not convinced by the man-at-arms spam. Not at this stage, and definitely not against HRE, especially when he's pushing out knights like this. You are at least getting spears, so I do feel like MarineLorD needs to get a few archers to accompany this, and it's going to be crossbowmen. He understands that most of the army is still man-at-arms, right? So that's his chief concern. And meanwhile, he sends the archers across map! Oh my god, 3DB, remember, he's got no way of protecting himself here. He has got the Council Hall to build units, but he doesn't have surplus. He's investing everything on the forward front right now. And any eco damage done here is going to be overwhelming. Wallalow. Longbowman, this is going to be tight. Is he going to get it? Oh my god. One more second max, and then that man-at-arms army is turned against England, but clutch snipe out with the man-at-arms and the longbows just in time. Squeaky bum time is over for the Wallalow, but it's definitely not over for 3DB. 3DB now trying to wall aggressively to get his longbows on top. And he will do so just in time. However, you can't put your buildings on top of walls, and that's why MarineLorD runs straight through towards them. And these archers, with their superior range, can be pesky, but it's just two of them in range of the TC. This isn't good enough. 3DB, you can just feel him fumbling back and forth with these moves. Spears are keeping him alive in the meantime. 3DB says, I'm not done just yet. Although, your eco count's looking like it is. He's been stemmed off the wood. He can't gather wood right now. Big deal. Has just enough for a lumber camp. So that's going to slow down his production of units. And that means that MarineLorD can surpass him. And 3DB, even if you try to go for a secondary TC right now, you're so far behind at this stage. 59 compared to the 31. How the hell is he going to peel this back? Can he peel it back? Archers moving in. Looking to snipe out a few of the villies. Unable to do so just yet, but once again going to make that wood line and the farmlands uncomfortable in the meantime, just slowing down the economy of 3DB and thus stopping him from reaching critical mass on the forward front. More knights just being pushed out non-stop. No crossbowmen right now. Could get a few archers. I'd love to see that out of MarineLorD, but right now he just feels like he can get enough knights to overwhelm his opponent. Problem is, this gives 3DB a cost-effective solution, right? Just spam spears. That is what he's doing right now, and oh, no. No, 3DB, he's busy looking at his base. These spears are going to be wasted underneath the TC. Not even a combined attack. The outpost is well joining in, so he's going to lose the spear army, and the longbows have to retreat once more. And archers finally cleaned up by 3DB back in his base. But still, economy damage done, right? The delay, the force back and forth across with these wood lines, slowing you down, stopping you from reaching critical mass. And MarineLorD, a little bit stubborn really with this knight spam. I think if he brings out some archers, which he's now doing, he completely kills off his opponent. He can't do anything anymore. Right now, though, MarineLorD, he's kind of in chill mode, right? He understands how much 3DB is invested on this. He understands how much is at stake, right? It's a BO1 bomb burner, and you know 3DB is feeling the pressure. So what's he going to do? He might just rack it on. Look at his numbers right now. 1,400 food, 500 gold. If he wants, with 2 relics banked already, he could easily just boom up into the Imperial Age. And then he'll outscale you indefinitely. And purposeful break of the wall. They raised the gate entrance, right? So he needed to wreck the wall to be able to run up top. But it's in range of the TC. This is the mistake. If he'd done it over here into the gold line, maybe it's a bit better. But even then, it feels wonky at this stage. And the one good thing for 3DB about this, right, is look at this relic. The easiest relic, and he can't get it as MarineLorD because that relic is in the middle of the rack spam. That rack spam that is slowly dying to the galley, by the way. He's losing one of the forward ones, and I don't think he has any more villagers here. No. Completely gone. He's trying to sneak a raise onto the dock here, but he got revealed too early. Oh, and look at it. Straight away, MarineLorD just built a new dock. Shrugs it off. He says it was your curse before. It's exactly why you didn't win with the initial spam. And I'm just going to do it to you again. And then I'm going to charge out. And you're not braced for it either. He's not looking. He turns around now. But the damage is already done. The spearman line is gone once more. And this was a cute idea for EB. But I think this dance is almost over. He's at least scaling up now. He's building back in his base. Maybe he bounces back off the merits of the fact that there's not that much pressure in his base outside the occasional knight. The problem is just how far behind he is. Look, MarineLorD, he completes it. He's up at Imperial Age. And now, that eco count, 74 right now, compared to 35. Double, soon to be triple. And what's your answer right now? I mean, even with the Spearman, the Knights are on the prowl. There's definitely going to be an upgrade coming through soon, right? And if MarineLorD clicks that upgrade button, in a minute's time, his shiny Knights are going to be nigh on unstoppable. Even against Spearman. Goodness. The wood quantities as well. Half the time just trading it. Doesn't care for it. And there you go. Force you off your wood line. Spearmen stand their ground. Nice brace. Is it going to be enough though? MarineLorD hasn't upgraded the Knights, but it doesn't matter. These spears are underwhelming. These are not hardened. Or sorry, not hardened. They're not veteran, rather. The hardened Spearmen don't last long enough. The Knights outnumber them. It's not a one-to-one trade, and it doesn't end that way as a result. And with 8 Knights now running rampant through your economy, there isn't enough room to garrison all your villages. And so many of them getting sniped out. And look, the amount of villages over here near the gold line as well. Everyone running towards the outpost is baiting them over there. And even though you're eventually going to get rid of these Knights, at what cost will it have been? Well, the cost is almost triple the eco count for MarineLorD now. 34 to 94. And this fort base no longer any value at all, because he has to have everything producing back in his primary to protect him. And I just don't know what you can do, because now these are elite Knights and the veteran archers arrive as well, so the Spearmen aren't even getting remotely decent trades. And he calls the GG. 3DB, I love the attempt. I knew he was going to try for it. I could feel it. We are back up against the wall. This type of player, this pub stomp style, cheeky, young, you want to see them play exactly like this. But MarineLorD, he knows cheese when he sees it, when he smells it. Not only has he got the experience of going up against cheese for years in StarCraft, he's a Frenchman. It's one of the main cuisines. You were never going to get the cheese past him. He spots it out. The double dock drop makes the Vanguard go flop. And from there on, 3DB, as you can see, is just in the shadow of MarineLorD, never able to even remotely outscale him. What a play out of both players. I love the attempt. Fantastic idea out of 3DB. But against MarineLorD, against HRE, and the way this went was never going to end well. But thank God France got banned out. Thank God we got some Boulder Bay action. And thank God it gave us a unique twist. Because most of the time, it plays out into that resource drain, right? And that was exactly why 3DB didn't want to go that way, by the way. If you turn it into a resource drain against HRE, what usually happens in these maps is whoever has infinite gold wins the game, because usually you push forward to the center, you drain those gold veins, and there's no gold left on the map. Meanwhile, if there's a French player in the map, they're trading, probably, because they still have control of the water. If there's a Mongol player, they might have been playing into trade. They're guarding a caravan. Or an HRE player has a Regnitz Cathedral banked full of relics. And that's why he went in for this early game. It looks like he's trolling. It looks like he's throwing. That is not the case at all. He's playing for a late... he's playing for an early timing, rather, because he realizes in a late game, he doesn't scale as well or as effectively. And he's at risk against the superior might of the HRE in that mid-rapid Imperial Age timing that you get at around the 15-16 minute mark. Fantastic game nonetheless. Great series. Love the back and forth feeling of it. Wasn't really a stomp one way or the other, I don't feel like. I feel like although the endings to this might have seemed that way, these players took different approaches, and it gave us an interesting best of 3 that went all the way to the third game. And now, after that, still more action, because up next is going to be Viper versus Lucifron before we decide who is going to be the victor between those two that will have to go through to the finals and face off against Lord Supreme here, MarineLorD himself.